Welcome to the Fantasy Source Football Podcast. My name is David A. Arnott, sitting here with Matthew Lutovsky, and just before this, we were talking about the Charlotte Bobcats, and they're going through a lot of changes. They're basically doing a weird ticket scheme thing that's really upsetting both of us, and me especially, because I'm a huge Bobcats fan. But you know what? When it comes down to it, change is a part of sports.
Yes.
You know what? They don't have to sell tickets at the same price they sold them before. And just as that's true for the Bobcats, teams don't have to start the same guys week after week in fantasy. And you managers, you have to deal with it.
Right. No, it's absolutely right. I mean, teams, we saw, I think, a big one this past week coming out of the bye. All of a sudden, Dallas caught Felix Jones as a feature back. That's what people thought was going to happen before the season started. Didn't. Now it looks like it's happening. And we see these changes. Teams, real teams switch up midstream. They might change an offense, change personnel, something like that. And fantasy owners have to react and adapt to it.
I mean, this week in particular, it really jumped out at us, and that's why we've chosen it as our theme. Yep. There are guys returning from suspension. There are guys that have been injured, and those teams are going to be adjusting. Let's go down the list.
Yes.
Ben Roethlisberger,
that's
coming back. He's the big one. A lot of guys drafted him thinking, okay, I'll use my number 2 quarterback for the first few weeks and then go to a number 1 quarterback in Roethlisberger for the rest of the time, maybe get some value out of that pick by picking those 2 guys late. How do you see Roethlisberger doing, especially in this first week, at home against Cleveland, and then moving forward?
Yeah, perfect matchup to come back on, I think. Going against Cleveland, not a great pass defense, and look, Roethlisberger's a great quarterback. We know that. It's, I think, natural to expect a little rust. But, I think he'll be fine. And the biggest, the big guy, the one that, I've been sitting on in 3 leagues this whole time is Mike Wallace. I am excited about the Mike Wallace, Ben Roethlisberger era. I think he's going to take off. I think deep threat, big plays. Hines Ward will be more reliable. Certainly Heath Miller will be more reliable. And, and the other thing, too, I don't think it really takes any points off Mendenhall's plate. I mean, maybe a few less touches, but he's a great back, and it'll loosen up defenses. And I just think all around for the Pittsburgh offense, I think everyone gets a boost.
Yeah, well, whatever Mendenhall would have lost from sheer volume of touches, he gains in quality of touch, I would say.
I think so, yeah.
The other team that has gone through a major change, the New England Patriots.
Yes. They
traded away Randy Moss, who is ostensibly their only major deep threat. They're going to try to make a go of it without him, apparently. Right. The rumors of them and Vincent Jackson have kind of tailed off. Rumors of them and any other major wide receiver have kind of tailed off. Where do you see them going without that guy who can take them deep? Or do you think Brandon Tate is that kind of guy?
Tate, Deion Branch. Obviously, Tate's unproven, Branch old, injury-prone. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the initial thought when that trade went down was that we're going to see a lot more 2 tight end sets. We're going to see a lot more Aaron Hernandez down the seam, Rob Gronkowski short, and basically their offense is going to change. And it's tough to say until we see them in out on the field. I think Tate will be a decent fantasy player going forward. I don't like Deion Branch. I just don't think he can stay healthy. I just don't like it. I know Brady loves him. People are excited about that. But I think Tate's the guy if you're looking kind of to take a flyer on any of those guys. And I do think Hernandez sees a bump in value, but I don't see it being significant. I think Randy Moss opening things up in the middle helped him more than what's going to happen now.
As a scheme dork, as the case may be, I love the idea of guys who create those matchup problems like Aaron Hernandez, who looks like a wide receiver, and you see him go into the huddle, and you don't know if he's going to line up in a power formation up against the line, three-point stance, or if he's going to be in a spread formation. I think Bill Belichick kind of appreciates that too, and has shown a little bit of it. But now without Moss, that kind of creativity is going to get stoked a bit. I'm thinking, and Hernandez would be the kind of guy I'd be looking at if he's still available, especially if you were one of those people who had Jermichael Finley.
Yeah, well, he's the big one. You talk about a tight end who's a glorified wide receiver. Finley might be, him and Dallas Clark might be the best examples of that, and certainly his injury has, a lot of just people really freaking out about it, worried. Everyone loved him, and how the Packers offense, look, Rodgers might be hurt, not play this week, but, assuming he comes back this week or next, whatever, how does their offense change is a big question. And a lot of buzz right now about Andrew Quarles, who Could be good. I don't know. No one knows. That's the thing. And I hear people say, like, well, but the Packers used a tight end a lot, so almost by proxy he'll be good. Well, Finley's a special case, though. Again, he basically a wide receiver, can Corliss do that? I personally think a wide receiver will essentially fill in for Finley. I think James Jones sees more targets, and I think he winds up running those seam routes, or maybe even Jordy Nelson. But I'm not ready to go all in on Andrew Corliss quite yet.
Now, even if Rodgers does come back and play, the fact that it's kind of up in the air at this moment, I mean, that would give me a lot of pause. I mean, they've had so much trouble with the running game since Ryan Grant went out, or at least, if not trouble, been disappointing, that if they end up with Matt Flynn starting at quarterback, and I do love me some Matt Flynn as game manager non-pare, but basically if you've got him going or a recently concussed Aaron Rodgers, I'd be very, very, very worried about going into a game with those guys, depending on those guys.
No, yeah, and I mean, certainly Jennings has been, it seems to be his MO, up and down again, and not putting up those big numbers, getting those big plays. People are worried about him. And, there's definitely reason to be worried. Playing a decent team coming off a bye with Miami. So, this is definitely, I almost want to say a wait. It's like, if you have Aaron Rodgers and he's active, you play him, of course.
Yes.
But this is almost like a wait-and-see week with the Packers, where we're just seeing, okay, what's the plan now?
Okay, now let's talk about running backs. The guys who are potentially getting new roles. Marshawn Lynch, probably the most obvious one, going to Seattle. Do you see him as being the primary back?
Not right away. I mean, it's one of those weird things where I think people saw the trade and just immediately jumped on board. And it's weird because Justin Forsett's one of these fantasy favorites who fantasy owners seem to love more than his actual coaches or people in the league. I think it's going to be a split. I think at least this week it's going to be a split. And, how it shakes out going forward, I guess you'd give Lynch the edge because they obviously weren't happy with Forsett, or at least totally happy. But he's still a good third down back, still a good receiver. He's still going to play. So I don't see necessarily either one of them being like a RB1. And I think a lot of people are expecting that or hoping for that from Lynch. And I don't know if they're going to get it.
There's a narrative here that I think is not necessarily getting enough play, which is that Pete Carroll is still sort of in the college coach mode, in the sense that you have to remember that USC, he had at times 10, 12 All-Americans at running back all on the roster, and they had to find time for all of them, so he played 4 of them.
Right.
And in this case, he's got 3 guys that are all essentially about the same in total value, but they all do different stuff.
Right.
Just use all of them, And none of them is all that great in real life terms, and for fantasy owners, it's just the infuriating aspect of it that I think that the real life coaches see running back by committee and think, okay, I could have 2 awesome guys, Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. They're sharing time. Well, it doesn't necessarily work out for you if you've got Marshawn Lynch and Justin Forsett, because they're not as good as those other 2 guys.
Right. Well, and the thing that kills me too, these running back tandems is they're never on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
It boggles my. I actually went to the Panthers game last week. Panthers-Bears. It set football back 20 years.
They had 3 wide receivers.
Yeah. It set football back 20 years. I'm watching this game thinking, you have 2 playmakers on this team. That is it. Find a way to get them on the field.
Mess with the defense.
Something. Anything. Misdirections to one, pitch to the other, whatever. And these coaches, for all this talk about coaching, and only it seems like Sean Payton is the only one who's willing to do stuff.
Miami does interesting
stuff. And Miami
too.
Does some stuff too. It boggles my mind, and if coaches would start doing that, fantasy owners would be much happier. Much happier, but that's a pipe dream for now.
So, to recap, lots of change. Ben Roethlisberger, you're going to play him if you got him. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers, you play him if you got him.
Yeah.
Wait and see on everybody else.
So it's a way, ESPN with college football loves to give it every week stupid little names, Showdown, Saturday, whatever. This is wait and see week 6. That's what this is. So,
all right, Matt. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.